This Fast 9 comp is the strongest comp at the moment, and it's what every top player is trying to play every game. It have an insanely high average placement, and the same goes for the highest win rate in the game. When we put the stats up against comps like Reroll Bard or Yone, they are not even close. This should be the comp that you want to play every single game if the game gives you the option. The first thing that we want to do is to get to level 9 every game, and yes, we can do it consistently with the right strategy. But before we go into how to do that, let's look at what we are looking for. First, we have the two Behemoth units. This is Udyr and Ornn, and both of them will be our tank units. Both will hold tank items, and mainly we'll put items on Ornn first, since we most likely will fight him first. Other than more frontline, Ornn will also provide us the ability to give other units items temporarily during the fights. Udyr had the solo trait Spirit Walker, and at the first time he gets below 50 health, he unleashes the Rage within, healing him up and giving him movement speed and changing his ability. He basically just reset and then becoming a damage dealer instead of a tank. Then we have the two heavenly units, Wukong and Soraka. Wukong will be our bruiser, meanwhile Soraka mainly just will be a trait but also do AoE Mana Reave. Then we have Lysandra, who mainly is here for her ability. She will make her target into a teapot and do damage. If the target dies, we have a 50% chance of getting an orb, and that means more gold and more item components. If the target doesn't die, she will send the unit flying. The last two units in the front line is Diana and Rakan, and they give us Dragon Lord. This trait gives us some true damage to the enemies, and do also give us attack speed for the rest of the combat to all our units after 8 seconds. And Diana do also have Sage, which with Wukong gives us that trait. This gives us only ramp in the front line and AP to the backline. And Rakan and Soraka do also have a trait that benefits everyone, and this gives us a little bit of healing to everyone when these two units do damage, and we do also have more armor and more magic resist to everyone. The two last units is Hwei and Azir, and these two units will be our main damage dealers. Hwei gives the soul trait Artist, and each round a unit standing on this mark, you'll get a number. When that number is equal to the unit's cost of the unit, you will get a copy of that unit. That means it takes 2 rounds to get a 2-cost unit, and it takes 5 rounds to get a 5-cost unit. But you can already start stacking it up before you have the unit that you want to copy. This is the comp that you want to play every single game, but there is a lot of other variations that you can play. And here's a few examples that you can play. What you could do is to take Lysandra out and play something like Annie instead. Then you have more frontline, you do have less CC, but you do also get the Invoker trait together with Azir, and that means basically everyone is getting more mana fast, and that is really good for backline units. It could also be in your build up to this comp, you are playing something like Yana, and Yana is quite good unit, and instead of Annie, you could play that unit. That again means we have the trait Invoker, gives us more mana to the backline and every other units, and we do also have one more trait in Dragon Lord, and that will do a little bit more damage, and it will also give us a little bit more of attack speed. So this is the board that you're looking for, and then you can just pivot in something like Diana, Annie, or Lysandra. You could also play every other unit that are good by themselves, but these 3 units is probably the best ones. And when it comes to items, as I mentioned before, Udyr and Ornn will hold the tank items. Azir will hold the AP, mana items, and attack speed items. Meanwhile, Hwei is the one that you want to itemize the first. We want mana, Morello, and AP. And to get to level 9, we have to pick up experience augments or economy augments. And in the best case, we're getting one at the first augment. It can almost be any of them, but Tiny Titans, Patient Study, Hedge Fund, Level Up, Balanced Budget, Sharing is Caring is all great augments. But almost any other augments can work as well. As long as it gives us experience or gold, it is good for this comp. If we can't get augments that fits this, we will go for something like items or something that makes our board stronger right now, because we do want to avoid losing too much health. And there is of course some portals that are better than others and purely from stats, and it is what's working right now. The best ones is Golden Gala, Pot of Gold, and Anvil. But just take what looks most sense when you want to play level 9. Items should be slammed as often as possible. Doing 2, we want to save as much health as possible in the early game, so we do have the chance to get to the late game. The items that can be slammed is almost any of the pure tank items, because Udyr and Ornn can use almost all of them. Claw, Stoneblade, Heart, or Bramble Vest is all useful, and we can even go for early Sunfire Cape if needed. Other items that we're looking for is AP and mana item. Shojin is preferred mana item for both Hwei and Azir, so that will be an instant slam if we want to play this comp. The only other core items for these 2 units will be Morello for Hwei, because he do AoE damage. From here we just want to put in AP items like Death Cap, or in the best case, Dual Gauntlet, And Azir can also use items like Nashor's Tooth or Static Shift, Rage Blade, or just other AP items that he don't already have. You can look at these two units as Hwei is more of AoE and also hitting the backline, meanwhile Azir is more about getting through the front line. That also means something like Giant Slayer is better on Azir than it is on Hwei. But we do want to slam items for the current comp and not what we have in best in slot later in the game. So it wouldn't be wrong to push items like Gunblade, Red Buff or Giant Slayer earlier in the game to use them for later. If we have the option to slam bruiser items, we will put them on Wukong, but we will only do that if we already have units that are great with these items, or we can't use the components that we have. Wukong main items will be Bloodthirster and a Titans. And as the third item, we can put in something like Sterek, Edge of Night, or even Hands of Justice. The main thing is that you don't want to sit on item components, but rather slam them and save some health so you can get to the full comp. We're building items for the current strongest unit that we play, and we are not building what is best for later. In the end of the video, I will show you some quick gameplay and a few tips on how it could look like when you're playing the comp, and what you should focus on. So in the early game, we want to play the strongest comp that we can, without spending gold, and without using gold for leveling if we don't have to. Our first priority is to gain as much gold as possible, but saving as much health at the same time. And that means if we can hit an early 10 or 20 gold mark to start out our economy to snowball, that will be great. And throughout the game, we want to grab as many pairs as we can without stopping ourselves from the gold snowballing. So if you have above 50 gold and you do not have gold to get up in level, grab a few units, you might end up 2-starring them and use them for later. And obviously focus on getting units that you can use. So do you already have one bruiser in, you might want to hold another bruiser that you can put in later. Other than picking up units that gives us more trait, you also have to make sure to check out the Exalted trait. This trait gives us some percent damage based on our level. But more important in this situation, it do also give us a core who can be sold for 1 experience. We will get one of those every single time we had a combat round, and this will basically just boost our way up to level 9. So if you can play this trait, make sure to do it so we can get to level 9 faster. After grabbing ourselves an augment that gives us some sort of gold or experience, we're not playing to lose, but are we ending up in a 5 slew streak with above 70 health? It is alright. The most important thing is just to look for hit the gold marks 10 and 20 fast, do not lose too much health, and if we can stabilize after a 5 lose streak, it is no problem. And if we are not going for some sort of streak, try to hit 40 gold before stage 3. Consider leveling once just to save some health, and if you're strong enough, you could just save your gold and see if you can hit 50 gold before stage 3. Are you in the situation where you see yourself win streaking, you can also do that as a viable strategy. And if it works well, you can even go level 6 at stage 3-1 to make sure that you keep going on the win streak. And the same thing goes at level 7 when you hit stage 3-5. But this is only if you are on a win streak. Else you would just once again try to make sure that you have above 50 gold and keep pushing your levels. What we play in the early game doesn't matter that much. You just have to think that you have to gain the gold and do not lose too much health. But there is of course a few units and traits that are stronger than others. And right now you want to look for something like Story Weaver, Umbrella, and even a mix when Ahri and Duelist. All of these openers is really good, and all you want to do from here is just to slam items, put in units that gives us more trait, and keep going up in levels. If we do not hit an economy augment at this first one, we do want to have one as the second one. But we do not want to play without any combat augments. And if we do not get any augments that gives us more gold or more experience, we might want to consider playing a different comp. But if you have a fairly strong board with good health and a good amount of gold, you can still consider playing this comp and keep going forward to level 9. No matter what augment we're playing, we want to play the game with a high amount of gold all the time. And being level 7 at stage 3-5 with close to 50 gold or higher is really good. We also want to have as high health as possible, and do we sit on very high health, we do want just to have around 30 gold to have an easy time to get back to 50 gold. This will be if we have invested a bit more in units and have used a little bit more gold to stabilize our boards. When we hit stage 4-1 or 4-2, we want to go to level 8 and almost always stabilize our board. Selling item holder if needed, and hopefully finding a new item holder for the front and the back line before we're hitting the 5 units. If we simply just rush to level 9, we might end up not hitting what we want and just die out in a few rounds. When you want to consider changing your item holder, you always have to think how you're doing right now. If you're on a win streak, you might even consider not to change your units too much, because the traits and the composition that you have might be quite good. But if you're somewhere in the middle and you're still playing with a 1-cost unit as an item holder, you really want to consider changing out your units. But do you have a really strong comp and you're finding something like Hwei, you might consider not putting him in yet. Don't fix something that ain't broken. And when you get to level 9, you can start switching out your units. But no matter what, you should try to put in units that are individually strong. And some units like Annie and Ornn is quite good just by themselves, and they could also be a composition of your endgame comp. When I have to say you should stabilize before moving to level 9, that means getting in units that are 2-star and maybe even hitting some 5-cost units who can carry items. And you could also just upgrade your current board by putting in another unit that are strong by itself that fits your board well. Remember, if you can make your board way stronger and still have above 50 gold, you have a good chance of winning a few rounds and still have a great economy. When you stabilize, you want to aim to get to level 9. When you hit the better units, you can simply just move the units in for the full comp and move the items over for the new carries. And just before we get into the positioning and a quick tips and guide on gameplay on how we play the comp, if you could use this guide, please make sure to like it and even consider subscribing if you want to see more guides like this on set 11. How we place our units can have a big impact, and by default we want to play our units like this. That means all the tanky units in the front line and have our backline units spread out like this. That could even be putting the 2 main carries in the corners, but are we playing against snipers, we could end up changing our units a little bit around. We do also want to look out for something like Morgana, and we would never put our units close together so they can be sniped together. Spread out your units and see where you can hit the most units. Hwei usually go in the middle so he can hit more units. Meanwhile, Azir will go on the units that we want to destroy first. When we are placing Lissandra, we want to put her up against the tankiest unit they have. That means we can destroy that unit faster or even throw it away. Ornn should not sit in the side, even if he is quite tanky. That means if he survives a long time in the fight, you will start stacking up items on all your other units. If you have some sort of healing or tankiness on Wukong, he can easily sit in the side and provide a good amount of sustain to keep him alive. But else are you playing something like Annie, she will obviously just go in the front line, and you can even put her in the middle, because the first time she casts, she starts getting more tanky. Are we playing something like Diana, she will obviously sit in the back line. Remember before you start forcing this comp should only be played if you have a strong economy start and are getting to level 9 naturally. Let's say you're playing something like Bard or Yone reroll but are consistent. Instead of rolling for ages and seeing yourself dying out, consider using the gold for experience and get yourself into this comp. Pivoting your comp in the later stages is hard, and now you have been warned when it comes to forcing it. Okay, let's look at a game. So early game I get an experience augment, and I do already have my eyes on fast level 9. I do also get a Lux, which can be an item holder for my backline units. And I do also want to boost my units by slamming items and give Lux a Gnash Tooth. The tier I already know is going to be a Socian, and my focus is to get to 10 and 20 gold as fast as possible. I do only get 20 gold just after the last combat round, but my health is very good. Now I just want to get to 50 as fast as possible and start buying experience. And at the same time, I've looked at Exalted and using units from that trait, and I only need 1 more of these units. So what I'm looking for is getting to 50 gold, 1 more Exalted unit, and at the same time slamming items to save health. My second augment will be a combat, rolling or item. And the only items that I really can't use is AD items. And I do have a Reforger, so I go for the item. Once again, I just want to get to 50 gold and push levels. And I do also pick up other units that I have a chance to 2-star and use for later. At stage 3-5, I'm level 7 with 50 gold. And I'm very healthy. Less health could also work just fine. And from here, I just want to push all my gold above 50 into experience. At the start of stage 4, I go level 8. And if I was lower on health, I had to roll to upgrade my board more. But I see my chance to go straight to level 9. And this is unusually, because normally I do not have that much health and I have to stabilize, and this is very important. If you do not stabilize and you're low on health, you might get to level 9, but in a few rounds you will just end up dying because you're not fast enough to move your units around and you're not fast enough to stabilize your board with your new costly 5-cost units. When we get to this point where we want to stabilize, we want to look for Soraka, Diana and Ornn, and then whatever 2-star units that can fit the comp. It could also be the other way around, you already have a strong board or something similar to that, and you want to put in Soraka, Diana and Ornn. And once again, remember, if you're doing fine, you don't have to fix anything. Now I only pick up units that I think I could use for the final comp, and then I just wait to the point where I can get to level 9 with enough gold for rolling. As soon as I see a reliable carry, I will pick up that unit and slowly move in the other units that are 5 cost, and in the end ending up with the full board. And even if you see your chance to get to level 10 at some point, don't consider it. Most of the time it's just a bad idea, and the same goes for having a 4 or 5 cost unit that you want to 3-star. The chances is just too small, and just try to upgrade every other unit to 2-star instead. If you could use this guide, please make sure to like the video, and if you want to learn how to climb with all the other comps at set 11, consider subscribing. You can always change your mind. That was all for now. Good luck on climbing, and thanks for watching.